Well, I have some. I did a little research.
Yeah.
On your Bulldogs, yeah, and so I have a few things I'd like to point out. The defense, while maybe they give up 5-6 yards a carry, they do not necessarily give up the big play.
Okay.
In fact, they've allowed the fewest plays of 20-plus yards in the FBS this season.
Running or passing?
Running or passing.
Wow.
17 total plays over 20 yards against Georgia all year, and 5 of those came against LSU. So if you take the LSU game out of it, your D is only giving up 1.5 plays. You're only giving up 1.5 plays over 20 yards each week.
Wow, that's a great stat.
Mm-hmm. And your offensive line, which, maybe you felt iffy about them at some points in the year, and as you mentioned, there were injuries coming into the game, but they only allowed pressure on Jake Fromm on 2 of 21 dropbacks in the game against Kentucky. And then obviously you ran the ball like you did, which you already pointed out. So
and he looked good again.
I say all that to say, if Georgia continues to trend in the direction they are now, clearly they've already locked up the East. What's your level of confidence that Georgia can give Alabama a fight? Keeping in mind that this is a team that probably should have won the national title a few months ago.
Yep, I agree. And keeping in mind that this is a different Alabama team to an extent, but there's always a chance when you have talent and you're playing in a neutral environment and you're seeing a team that you're familiar with. So I think the 2 biggest things are health. So Georgia's trending in the right direction from a health standpoint, getting the offensive line healthy, getting the running backs healthy. A couple of wide receivers have been dinged up. So if everyone can come back healthy, I think that's a good start. And then, like you said, the youth just continuing to get better and better. Then there's always a chance, And I think, you have to go through things like not getting down early, getting the ball out of Jake Fromm's hands quick. Because I think what killed Georgia against LSU, one of the things, and has hurt them in the past, is the play action is slow developing, and it doesn't allow Jake Fromm to make quick reads and continue to push the ball down the field. And then in doing that, you kind of have the defense on their toes, and then you can run the ball up the middle and keep moving the ball. If we can do something like that against Alabama early on, there's definitely a chance. And we're going to have the ball bounce in our favor.
Let me ask the question a little bit different. How many teams, realistically, either one of you guys, do you think really could beat Alabama?
I mean, to be honest with you, and I'm not a Michigan guy, Michigan might be I think Georgia is, just from a talent standpoint and how they match up, just the consistency on both sides of the ball when they're playing well. I think they would be my first pick. I don't know. Or Clemson, I guess, is up there. I don't know, Brecky, what do you think?
For me, it's just Clemson. I don't – the Michigan offense can't score with Alabama. I don't think Notre Dame can stop and or score with Alabama. Georgia's an interesting one because I think when they play their best, they might be. But I don't know if we've seen that version of Georgia yet, the version we saw last year.
Right.
Whether it was in the SEC championship game or the national championship game.
Or the semifinal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I guess Clemson, just because of Trevor Lawrence and where Alabama's kind of been vulnerable this year is through the air. Now, Burrow and LSU didn't do anything, but as we talked about before, Joe Burrow hasn't done much against anybody through the air this year.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What are your thoughts, Coleman?
I think that in terms of a complete team that can play with Alabama, all things being pretty equal, no massive discrepancy in game pace or this team turned the ball over a whole bunch or this guy got hurt, whatever, just straight up. I think Clemson has to be the first team that you mentioned just because they've been there. For the last 4 years, Clemson has been the challenger to Alabama. They've defeated Alabama. They've won a national title. This team is loaded. They can play with Alabama in the trenches up front. The defensive line at Clemson is probably the best in the country. If it's not Alabama, it's
definitely.
Clemson.
They're better than a couple NFL teams.
No, yeah. I mean, they've got 4 guys that are going to be on NFL teams playing heavy minutes on Sunday next year. The Trevor Lawrence thing has really surprised me at Clemson because when Kelly Bryant left, I was concerned for them. But Lawrence has stepped up and been – it's almost like when LeBron came in the NFL or into the NBA, he had so much expectation on him that it seemed like it would be impossible that he would live up to all of the hype, and yet he did. And there are very few examples of anybody ever doing that since. Maybe you could throw out a Bryce Harper in Major League Baseball, Sidney Crosby maybe in the NHL. I don't know,
Yeah.
but the point I'm getting to is that Trevor Lawrence has far exceeded the hype, I think, at this point. I mean, look, Louisville's Louisville. But 10 guys scored in that game last week.
That
And
is
Trevor didn't even have
outrageous.
to do much because he put them out early and it was over. Clemson has the killer instinct, I think, that you need to be able to go into a game with Alabama with your – not that LSU was scared. They weren't. They don't have the firepower. Clemson has that attitude that LSU had, but they also have the firepower, I think. I mean, look, Trevor Lawrence has got more weapons than anybody, save for maybe Oklahoma, offensively in the country to go to bat against Alabama. So I like Clemson. I like Georgia. And like you said, they haven't exactly been the same team that we watched last year for whatever reason. They just kind of been stuck in the mud, I feel like, for the better part of this year. But that's still a team that, quite frankly, should have won a national title last year.
Oh, absolutely.
And, you know, obviously they lost some key pieces, but they've also had some key replacements step up. So Georgia's a team that you have to take seriously. Beyond that, Michigan's defense can play with Alabama. Can their offense? I don't know. Oklahoma's offense can score with Alabama, but their defense is going. I mean, Tua's going to score every 3 plays. So I don't know. I think it pretty much begins and ends with Clemson and Georgia. I don't think there's really anybody else that can go toe to toe with Bama.
Yeah.
Now, if Oklahoma gets into a fight with Bama in a 1-versus-4 in the playoff, you got to punch your shot. You got Kyler Murray. You're going to score. If you can get some turnovers and get some stops, I don't know, maybe. But I just think I think it's Clemson, maybe Georgia, and then nobody else.